Big news today at the NASCAR lawsuit as they get in the courtroom for the first time. Everybody that we know and love in the sport, Denny Hamlin, Michael Jordan, Mike Helton, Jim France, all were there today. And boy, oh boy, did we have some interesting stuff go down. So you can find all this information at sportsnot.com article. They have a bunch of articles on this. You can also find some information on this with Matt Weaver and Bob Pockris, obviously, all reporting on this. And the first exchange that I thought would be interesting was between the judge and Jeffrey Kessler, who is the lawyer for 23XI, where he says, they started with their worst argument. Then the judge replied, what is their best argument, Mr. Kessler? He scratches his head. I'm sure Mr. Yates will give me one. That is very interesting. Another quote from Kessler here that I thought was very interesting as we move down here. NASCAR argued that up here that after Michael Jordan sold his NBA team, he could have chosen to invest in Formula 1 and IndyCar, and Kessler responds back with, if you're an Apple monopoly, you can't legally argue go eat pears as a substitute for apples in the market. Great comparison, I think. Really, for people who don't understand a lot about racing, I think that really it kind of dumbs it down in a good way to show that, hey, IndyCar and NASCAR are not the same, and heck, don't really even linger in the same breath in terms of trying to get an audience. Now, here is what you've been hearing from a lot, the section of the article that got reported. They argue that instead of competing for money through race and championship purses, the teams wanted to guarantee value and starting spots. Yates and NASCAR characterized the teams all as a, quote, cartel. Yes, and we'll read the quote here. Yates and NASCAR said the teams, through the Race Team Alliance, strong-armed NASCAR by banding together and dictating terms of the charter agreement. He went as far as suggesting that the only anti-competitive behavior that existed came from the teams. Quote, if there was any anti-competitive behavior, it came from the RTA, Yates said. They acted as a cartel. They said, we will only do this if you give us these terms. That's unlawful. Before we read on, I just want to state, mercy above, that's a heck of a claim. Now, the definition of a cartel, we'll pull up right now. Now, as you can see here, the definition of a cartel is a group of independent market participants who collude with each other as well as agreeing to not compete with each other in order to improve their profits to dominate the market. I would agree with some of that definition with that. I think, yeah, they're colluding with each other, but I don't think they're agreeing to not compete. I think that's a gross characterization of what the teams are. The judge, it says right here, the judge then pushed back by asking, didn't NASCAR do the same thing in August with a take it or leave it final offer? I also add on to that argument, isn't technically what NASCAR did with ISC, its partnering company, and SMI with Marcus Smith and the Smith family, the same exact thing as what the RTA is doing, which is basically partnering together to protect their market share in order to make sure that they don't get taken out? I would argue the same thing. They have a deal. They have an agreement. It's very well stated. There was even rumors that NASCAR was going to buy SMI at some point. They already have ISC. So if you're going to argue that, that's on both sides. That's a pretty bad argument in my opinion. NASCAR also argued that they will not be able to pay out the total, or it's not fair to the other teams to pay out the totals basically to 6 unchartered teams and take the money away from them. The argument that the Kessler team had and 23XI was that NASCAR's charter agreement allows up to 43 charter teams that the sanctioning body will suffer no harm in paying 23XI for a road to mutually participate in the terms of the charter agreement. Two things here. First off, great argument because it basically says, hey, the teams signed this knowing that they could have up to 43 charters and split the money up to 43 ways. So the fact that it changes from 30 to 36 or 32 to 36 shouldn't really affect what they already agreed to, because you agreed to have that possibly happen. Same thing with adding 38 to 40. Also, very interesting that NASCAR actually opened up a plan in the charter agreement, which we didn't know about, to expand the field to 43 cars, something that was not possible in the old charter agreement. It's a very interesting thing. That's probably some of the reason why the teams were not very happy with the charter agreement, because it allowed NASCAR to possibly give away charters and devalue the teams. that actually could be twisted into more things for why the teams would be unhappy and the charter agreement was unfair. The last big exchange here was at the end. It was actually the judge questioning the 23XI team. So this was all not an offensive attack by them. They did have to recede on a couple things. The judge here, it says Bell challenged, I cannot pronounce that name, apologies, on that front, saying he understood why NASCAR would not want to be in the business with teams that essentially badmouth them in public. Mr. Kessler said, "That's your opinion, Your Honor." And then the judge said, "I would say it's a little more than an opinion." And then Jeffrey Kessler said, "Of course, I apologize." So obviously, this is not all going 23XI's way. There is some pushback, which is what I've been thinking, because majorly what I've thought for a while with this case is that NASCAR is going to change drastically if this case goes through in ways that I don't think either team estimates it going. I think, well, yes, I think 23XI will get its way on quite a lot of things. I think also certain aspects of the sport will be changed in a way they will not be very happy with. This is an antitrust suit. We're trying to change the business model of the sport forever and basically break up what is a monopoly. I don't think, personally, I don't think it's much to dispute that NASCAR does have a monopoly on the racing industry. Just no one has debated their monopoly in the stock car racing industry in America for years. No one really has cared. It was managed well enough to where it was never a problem until about 20 years ago when certain liberties started to be taken. And also now the teams have a lot more power than what they did back in the day. And NASCAR does a lot less for the teams. You know, I mean, a lot of people don't know there actually used to be a system in place in NASCAR where you could apply through them and it would help you find sponsorship. They would do things for you to help you keep your team going. Nowadays, that doesn't happen as much. It almost seems like they're working against each other. It's even been stated in the lawsuit and what the judges have stated in this, in when they did the injunction, which, I mean, you don't know the injunction and why this is all going down is because NASCAR forcibly had to grant charters to the teams because the courts granted the injunction when they found that the teams had irreparable damages that could be done if they did not get in the charter agreement. That was done back in December. NASCAR's still trying to fight that to make sure that they don't have to grant them the charter agreement. So what's next for this? I was not joking, and many people were not joking when this is going to linger for a very long time if this does go all the way through. Who knows? They could try and settle out of court. Personally, I don't see it happening. I think the way this case is going right now, it's very much going to be done in court, in my opinion at least. I'm not a judge. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not anything legally. The only thing I legally know is engineering. So, with that being said, going forward, here's the timeline that's put in the article. Again, you can look at this article on sportsnot.com. They have an entire timeline and plenty of articles discussing this entire situation. Great information is in here, more than I could even discuss in this very short video. But again, Friday we'll see some more. I might release a video then. Also the 31st, going through the entire year. And the trial, of course, is December 1st, 2025. When it actually begins. Going to be a lot of interesting stuff that's going to come out during this. A lot of interesting stuff. And again, I don't think it's going to settle in court because they want more than just money. I don't think there is really many ways that the sport itself or that NASCAR itself can really get out of this. I just don't see it. It's an antitrust suit. And I do think that Jeffrey Kessler has the intentions to completely change the face of the sport. Whether you like that or not, that's what I think his intentions are. And I personally think that's what's going to happen. I don't know if it'll be a good thing. I don't know if it'll be a bad thing. But what I do know is I think the face of the sport will drastically change forever after this suit goes through. If it does. So with that, thank you all for watching. I hope I did a good job summarizing this and talking about this. The cartel thing is just crazy to me. That's very funny, personally. It's also intriguing to see how NASCAR attacks this as well. You know, using the term cartel. They've used a lot of different terms. Many don't forget that back a few months or a few weeks back, They actually tried arguing that they can't even sue them because they signed the former charter agreement. And then the judge told them that was an illegal business practice. You really shouldn't be arguing on that. And they dropped that, of course. Uh, I think this is right now leaning more towards NASCAR's way. And we'll see what happens as time goes. Or not NASCAR's way. It's leaning more towards 23XI's way, not away from NASCAR. So, anyway, without further ado, thank you all for watching. Until next time, take care.